All right, guys, this week on Bear Archery's Hunting 101, we are still at Hill Creek Outfitters here in Missouri. We are recapping our successful hunts, our failed hunts, our botched shots, and all things in between. We cover a whole lot of stuff. I got my boy Joey Sasquatch Zatmary, Andrew Swamp Donkey Hughes, and Gabriel Iglesias, and we are talking about our hunt, the lessons learned, the fun we've had, and the deer we've killed. As always, this episode is presented by our wonderful friends over at ScentLock. They've kept me warm all week. It's kept me dried all week. It's kept me more than warm. I got hot one day, and I had to just start shedding layers because it keeps you toasty. So, guys, make sure and tune in because this is going to be a phenomenal episode.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
All right, so we got Joey Sasquatch Zatmary. Joey, listen, we're just going to go straight to the good goods. Run us through your hunt, man.
Well, we got a buck, boys.
First buck ever.
Yeah,
First
boy.
buck.
It's just because you had a fantastic guide.
I did.
I think it's very clear right off that Joey's going to be the star of this podcast right now.
Well, I think we all got stories. We got stories to tell around the fire pit. So
Yeah.
let's have at it. Let's have a good one. I'm excited for this whole podcast with great people, good coffee. And just,
Mediocre coffee, dude. Don't give anything. Wait, did you make him a good coffee?
I'm not going to answer that.
No, dude, this
he's
is
been
the
after
same
me
stuff
for
you've been drinking.
Cup of gold all
Wink, wink.
week long.
Wow.
No, it's Folgers. It's just you got to know how to make it.
I don't even believe you now. Now I think you ran down home and you made Joey a good cup of coffee.
I did.
He said that. So,
I
all
thought
right.
it was just the water. I thought it was good water.
Yeah, that's it.
So Joey shot what might be the largest 6-point in Missouri history. No,
A beast, dude.
it's a giant 6-point.
Swamp donkey.
It's a swamp donkey. It's a swamp
Good
donkey.
recall there.
Andrew Swamp Donkey Hughes. We'll get to him in a minute. So Joey, walk me through what happened, man.
Got out there nice and early in the morning. Day was going good. We had a bunch of doe and buck. There was some smaller buck though, some spikes hanging out. How long were we out there? Maybe an hour. It was pretty early. I thought about an hour we're sitting there for.
That's good.
And it was pretty cool because there were two of them and one, but this one was coming straight down the hill, and it was kind of looking like he was just parting the seas of the doe as he was walking
Oh,
down.
yeah, dude.
He showed up. They just all like step away.
When
Right,
a big
yeah.
mature deer like that comes out, dude, the rest of the field, and you can tell.
It was cool. And then Gabe was just kind of like, I think we got to get ready. And as soon as he started saying that, my heart started just pumping even more. Because like I said, this is my first buck. And no matter how prepared you think you are, man, my adrenaline started thumping. And I'm also, for the record,
Listeners, don't let it fool you. When you hear 6-point, this is not your typical 6-point.
Not at
this
all.
Is a big old.
And that's one
framey
thing, like we
sucker.
were telling Joey, like, you know, because you hear the words, and Joey being a new hunter, you know, he heard the word 6-point. He's like, but it's just six point. And you never said that, but I'm sure it went through your mind. And, you know, we told him that, we're like, dude, that tiny deer we saw last night, the tiny deer I shot this week is an 8-point, but your deer is 5 times bigger and it's a 6. Like,
For sure.
yeah, I was impressed, honestly. I think the cool thing for me was seeing, I don't know what you guys call it because I'm more of a beginner, but just like the width of
Just a big old frame.
Yeah, just a big,
old
big frame is a perfect way to put it. So he started walking down, and we were trying to get ready in the blind. Now, note I'm 6'2", about 280.
Gabe said, be light on your feet.
Yeah. So we needed about 30 minutes to get set up. That's
that
actually
in complete
It
confidence.
was like trying to get a bear around a blind, dude. That's exactly what it was.
so just started slowly getting up, trying to make as least noise as possible. And then I came in, just kind of hanging out. got my bow drawn. This time I didn't draw it at my feet like I did the first trip.
Did we even tell that story last time?
I don't know. I don't know. You can tell if you want. It's kind
Pure
of fun.
strength, just a raw feat of strength. Next time somebody says, "What's your greatest feat of strength?" That's what you need to say. I drew my bow at my ankles. No. So last year, what he's referring to, our buddy Aaron Zeesh was in the blind, kind of guiding him, and he said, "All right, draw your bow back." And his bow was down like in front of your shins.
It was on my shins, and it got caught on a branch or something, which I didn't want to make a lot of noise. So I removed the branch. I think it was caught on the cam or something. And then I didn't know any different, so I just drew the bow at my shins.
Like something I've never seen before. I mean,
yeah, I didn't
Drew
really
it
think
back.
about it. Yeah, I just wanted to get the ball drawn back because the shot was there, and then I just straight up lifted my hands up and then took the shot.
so our buddy Aaron, you hear on camera, he says, "First off, how'd you do that?" He was impressed for sure.
Yeah, so that was a good chuckle. But no, got it drawn back, and I was just recalling on all the things that these guys helped me with, and we could talk about it more, or if not. But some of the things they give me was just my presentation with the bow, some tips on the draw, my grip, and then Gabe is kind of just in my ear, like, dude, like we got plenty of time, just breathe, no rush, like get the good shot. So drew back. And I think it was, how many yards was it?
24
yards.
25.
So I just put that top pin slightly above the front leg and shoulder. And then my biggest thing that I told myself was follow the arrow, like with my eyes.
Gabe, why did you tell him to do? Like, you told him specifically about, and basically it was follow through is what.
Yeah, it's just something I picked up on in years of hunting, and then also watching so many different hunters as an outfitter. It's so easy in the moment. Once your heart rate gets up, it's so easy to just make split-second decisions and rush so many different scenarios. So a lot of times what you see in a situation like that is everybody, they remember the shot thoughts. They aim small, miss small, all that good stuff. But then they forget about like following through. So the first thing they do is they pull a trigger and then they jerk their bow down to try to see where the arrow hit.
Should have watched the deer.
Instead of, so like I tell people all the time, like I told you, hey, pick that the spot, aim small, but make it your goal to watch that arrow hit through your sight frame, through your sight housing. And that right there, those two thoughts, I think together is like a recipe for success to make you more consistent in the woods every time.
Yeah.
Is it just follow through? It makes you follow through. If you can watch that arrow hit through your sight frame, then you're following through.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, so that was one of my biggest things. And actually on top of that was keeping my grip arm relaxed. That was the other thing. So when on the draw, what I was doing earlier that day was I had such a stiff arm, like my tricep was fully locked out. And these guys are saying, like, you got to keep relaxed with that arm, let their grip be relaxed. So I just remember specifically those two things.
Well, he basically just said you're one big muscle, so relax a little bit.
Yeah, it was a little tense. So I relaxed a little bit. And then as I released the shot, I watched it just obliterate his heart and lungs. Like I saw it with my own eyes, which was really cool. And then we had watched it run total about 70 yards, and then it just dropped. And it was cool because the first doe that I had shot last year, I didn't get to see that part of it. It just ran out of a view line. And Aaron told me, Aaron was like, it drops, but it was cool. But even like more so for me to be able to watch it, know that that animal really didn't suffer. It just dropped right away. It was a mature buck. I mean, my first buck, I was ecstatic. So
I counted on the video. It was 7 seconds from the moment you shot to the moment he died.
that's amazing.
7 seconds. So like you hear everybody say like, how could you do that to an animal? How could you, like that deer never even knew it was shot. Like it never even knew, oh man, that hurt. It was just reaction and then dead. 7 seconds
he
from
let the air out of him. It was just a perfect time, man.
which that was, and I'm gonna get to the performance of the arrow and the broadhead because I've just come to the conclusion that's absolutely my favorite arrow setup and my favorite broadhead setup. I shot that for 3 years, and that's exactly what I built for Joey this year. or that's what I built for him last year. Shot the same arrows, but just the way that arrow and that broadhead perform is just flawless. So how did you in that moment? Like you have a big buck coming out. You're like, dude, here's my chance. How do you keep your composure in that moment?
Yeah, so I think what's a little bit more unique for me is I'm a high level competitor. I've been my whole life, whether I was just in sports and then in the sport of strongman. I'm one of the top guys in the world for the sport. So I've had to compete under pressure for a long time. And, as humbly as I can say this, I'm very confident under pressure. So for me, my whole thing is right away, it's breathing. Like the first thing, hands down, is just taking nice deep breaths, not rushing anything, visualization prior to, like if you want to get really deep about it, I visualize that shot way more times than it has happened before it even happens, because then it just kind of ingrains it. Like I've been here before in a sense. Just staying as calm, cool, and collected as possible. Almost think in your head, like I'm just shooting a target. I've shot this target all the time, just like target practice. No different. Then just let her fly.
Did the size of the antlers ever get in your mind? Like ever get in your head of, dude, that's a big buck?
I think for me, honestly, the coolest part was watching it come down the hill. Like when I first saw it, there was just something so epic about it. Just walking down a hill, like towards a bunch of doe, and the doe kind of just parting like that, where they're like, whoa. Like,
he's here.
Yeah, he's just shown up kind of. Like to me, that was what was really cool.
It was like watching Bambi, like, just like as soon as that Bambi's dad shows up, he's so majestic in the woods. Just like that. It was just a super cool moment. Everybody go watch Bambi right now.
And cry your eyes out.
No, because the reason I asked, that's why I asked, because sometimes, like when you have so long to look at them, I'm sure both of these guys can attest to this. Sometimes when you have so long to look at him before you get to shoot, it's like, oh man, I want to kill him so bad. He's such a big, beautiful deer. And, sometimes it's easier when they just pop up like beside you and you're like, oh, there he is, I'm going to shoot him, because you don't have time to like start analyzing the antlers and like looking at the horns and thinking, man, what a cool big deer. You just shoot him. But you had so long. I mean, we watched him come down for 20 minutes. We got set up for 7 or 8 minutes. I mean, so you're looking at this buck for, around the 30-minute mark before you shot him. And sometimes that can really get in your head of like, oh man, I really want to kill this deer now,
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, my whole thing is, man, I just respect the animal so much. So after the shot, it's just like, wow, like that just happened. Like that feeling, like my adrenaline was skyrocket high. I could barely breathe. Like I released the biggest
The biggest what? The biggest what?
The biggest release of air, and then I just said, holy whisker biscuit.
The first thing, Joey shoots his first buck in his life, and the first word that comes to his mind is holy whisker biscuit. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Coming to a clothing line near you. You can buy your Holy Whisker Biscuit shirts at holywhiskerbiscuits.com.
It's the new brand. No, but yeah, I mean, just what an amazing experience. Just great guys, great people, amazing hunt, amazing guide, amazing lodge, and just wouldn't have wanted to have it any other way. So I just kind of goes for the whole experience, just being with a group of guys, the camaraderie, the talking prior, the chit chat and laughter in the blind, all that good stuff. It just makes it for just a very surreal and just icing on the cake experience for me. So pumped.
Yeah, no, dude. I told you this, I told Gabe this, like for outdoorsmen, like for people who do this all the time, like I can speak for Gabe 100% and say this. I was more pumped in that moment than if I would have shot one. Like I was so incredibly excited for you, dude. And like that's just what it's all about, man. Watching other sportsmen succeed is the best pleasure you can get. He was
just the trigger man in that blind. I mean, we all got it pumped out of that one. I mean, there's just such a cool
one. And it was even cool talking to Gabe, right? Because this is his property, his lodge. Like he's built relationships with the deer on this property. Like he'll be like, oh, I've watched this one for X amount of time.
And that's 100% what the non-hunting community doesn't understand. Like they think that we're just some bloodthirsty hooligans looking to kill anything. Like we have such a relationship with these deer for years before we kill them. Like, the buck I shot this year in Oklahoma, he was 7.5 years old, dude. there were sheds from him for the last 4 years. I mean, they'd watched him every year for 7.5 years. I mean, there's such a relationship with these animals, and non-hunters can never wrap their mind around, like, dude, I care so much more about those animals than you will ever know. Like, they just can't wrap their head around that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like from a beginner standpoint too, like there's so many people that just don't understand the process. And I was one of those people because I didn't start hunting until last year. That was my first hunting season. And I told these guys we were driving around, but it all started with reading a book for me about a guy who was on a hunt, getting out of his comfort zone and going on a big hunt in Alaska. And it was transformative for him. And it impacted me a lot to the point where because I didn't, have a family that was a hunting family. I didn't come from that at all. So it wasn't ingrained into me. So for me, it was really just something I wanted to do on my own. But for people who don't understand it, or maybe it makes you feel a certain way, the biggest thing is to lean into that. Like start leaning into that and trying things and getting out of that comfort zone and then understanding a little bit more about it. And I think you'll find it's a lot different than what you expected in a good way. And you'll be a lot more knowledgeable about what is actually going on because it's really just the circle of life in the most purest way possible. And it's just a beautiful experience. So, I mean, that's why I'm kind of hooked and, I'll do it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, we'll be back here this time next year. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. If I'm welcome.
Absolutely. Let's get it on the calendar.
No, you are. I'm not. You'll be here alone. No, but and I've laughed at it over and over again because it sounded funny and it was funny in the moment. But what you said after the shot, not the Holy Whisker Biscuit statement, but what you said after the shot, if more people could in that moment remember what to do, like you looked at us and you're like, dude, he said, dude, I just remembered everything you told me to do, and I did it. Like, but for real, like that sounds funny, and it is funny, just because you're like a little kid in a candy store, so excited. But that's 100% the truth. If we would just slow down and just remember, I've been here before. I've made this shot 100 times on the target, the same distances, the same set. I mean, I can do this, and then walk through a progression of whatever that progression is. And you alluded to it a little bit, like. You went through each step, loosen your grip, relax your bow arm, follow through your shot. You went through those things in your head, and if you can do that, it takes your mind off of the I got to kill this buck. Oh man, look how big his antlers are, because you're thinking through the shot process and you're thinking through what you've been taught, and it'll cause you to make a better shot.
And if you agree, tell me if you agree on this. But
I don't.
Well, hear me out first. Keeping your heart rate down, I think, has to be number one, because you can't make a decision if you start getting pumped up. It's just like, forget all the rest of the shot thoughts, everything, man. So number one, I'd say you guys work on, figure out a way to keep your heart rate down. That way you can make rational decisions in the moment. And we talked about it in the blind. As soon as that deer showed up, you're like, hey, keep your heart rate down, and just take big, deep breaths. And then you went through and you just executed everything perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, just like I said, from my competitive background, that's something that I've always taken super serious, was trying to stay calm, cool, and collect. Don't get lost in the moment, and being able to take those extra couple seconds to just get some deep breaths in, let the heart rate settle. I felt a lot better with the shot this year than last year. I remember last year I was a lot more worked up. Like, I do remember that, because I remember when I drew, my arm was just shaking out of control because the adrenaline was pumping. So I kind of remembered that memory being like, okay, dude, like, just take a little bit more time, or act like this isn't a big buck in your head. Like, this is like just a target to any other day. So I felt a lot more confident with how I felt physiologically this time than last time. But
so how did you keep that? How did you keep that under control? Just focusing on big, deep breaths?
Big, deep breaths, yeah. And just mentally being like, all right, like, no big deal. Like, telling myself inner talk. I'm a big proponent of inner talk, self-dialogue. So it's just nice, slow, consistent breaths. And then just being like, okay, like, just take your time. Like, you're not in a rush, and don't do anything stupid. Like, you actually hear Gabe in the video, he goes, don't shoot the window.
He does. He does.
And
good
I'm like,
advice,
it's good advice
honestly.
though, you know, like,
But then you're like, am I gonna shoot the window?
well, that was actually, that's what I did think. I was like, am I actually close to the window
Do you
now?
realize how many blinds die every hunting season? A lot, way more than you'd think. I
Really?
mean, oh man, there's so many blinds out there that take an arrow or they get cut because in the moment it's just like your heart rate gets up and you forget about everything else and you're so focused on pulling a trigger that you forget to aim. You don't even realize that you're not clear of the window. That your sights might be on the deer, but your arrow's pointing directly into the side of the blind. So, that's why I said don't shoot the blind.
Has it ever happened with you in the blind?
Yes, it has actually. Had one was with a kid one time, and he just you literally just split the blind open. This was in a pop-up tent. The other reason I said it because we're sitting in an insulated, metal blind on a trailer, high-end blind, and you don't want an arrow bouncing around in there with
I would just shield myself with Joey.
3 guys. Yeah.
The one thing I thought about, you had an uncle one time. Didn't he shoot the other side of his truck bed trying to shoot off the side
Oh,
of
he done lots of stuff like that. Yeah, he put a hole in the floorboards of a truck. You're talking about Uncle Floyd, right?
Yeah.
With a name like that. That type of stuff. That type of stuff always follows that. And then we would always have,
He was doomed from the beginning,
in
huh?
Kansas, I think is if you're born before, I think it was 1966, you don't have to take no hunter safety course or nothing like that. And so he was from the old school, never been to hunter safety class or anything like that, which I highly recommend because you learn valuable things like red means fire on a gun. And if you can't, if things like that. No, he always said, no, we'd say, Uncle Floyd, be a little kid, be like, hey, you're red's on your gun, it's on fire. He's like, no, red means stop. Well, when you're driving a vehicle, it does. And then he'd grab the gun and he said, now watch, I'll show you. And then he'd go boom, and then he just fired one right off in there. And he's like, oh, okay, maybe red does mean fire.
It's a wonder you're still alive.
Seriously, man.
He said, yeah, my dad quit letting me go with
I
him.
survived hunting with Uncle Floyd.
So shot took place. We made you wait in the blind, which was maybe cruel of us. We maybe should have just said, dude, go out there and get your buck. But like you said, there was still plenty of hunting time left. So we're like, well, let's just hang back and, maybe that. Because there was, like you said, 2 bucks come out. One that, I was hoping to shoot. Or just if any other buck comes out. And so we're like, well, let's just hang back. There's still plenty of hunting time. So let's just see if anything might come out. So we made you wait there. Well, as you're waiting, and the reason I ask you this because some guys don't see their deer fall, so they have to wait and wonder before they can even go get their deer. What was going through your mind as you had to wait?
I mean, I'll be completely honest. I was pretty pumped to like eat it eventually.
He's like, man,
Like-
I'm gonna eat his body.
Yeah. I was.
Look
man,
at those loins.
Yeah,
Loins.
I knew he was dead
Loins.
fast, and to me that was the first thing. I don't want him to suffer. I want him to be dead.
And I didn't shoot the back straps, so I
yeah.
get fresh.
Exactly.
100%.
So I was just pumped to celebrate with everybody because as much as it's like my first buck, I just think about everybody here, and I think what's cool is being able to harvest an animal and then come home and celebrate by everybody getting to eat what we just harvest. So for me, it was like, dude, I cannot wait to get the meat
I'm
off this
90%
thing.
sure it was only like a minute and a half before you said, Gabe, can we eat this tonight?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I was pumped.
Homeboy likes red meat, that's
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and I'll be honest too, I was really pumped to see the rack.
Yeah.
I was
No shame
really
in that,
excited.
bro.
Yeah, to go up there and see how big it was in person and put my hands on it. And also just respect the whole process of what just happened. I take a moment to kind of, just keep everything in my thoughts and prayers and just be in the moment of not just rush through everything. Be like, yeah, man, we just killed an animal. Let's go eat. It's just no, okay, admire what we just did and respect it. And then, just
Which
get home.
I
and
want to
celebrate.
admire what you did when you bear hugged the 250-pound deer and
We're
threw
not-
it over your shoulder.
We're not there yet.
What?
We haven't got to that part of the story yet.
I don't know if we were going to even talk about that, to be honest.
100% we are.
Okay, all right.
That was a feat of pure man strength.
Okay.
But no, I do want to mention though, on your admiration part, the first thing I noticed about him when he walked up, he didn't touch the horns first. He
right. He just
he
looked
brushed the hair on the deer, and you could tell he was really admiring the
Oh,
animal that he
taking
just
that
it
moment
wasn't
in
about
for
a
sure.
trophy. It wasn't about the horns. He was paying respects to the animal that he killed, and you can just tell by looking at him. I mean, if you
Right.
watch the video, you can tell by his face. It wasn't just, dude, where's the horns? So many hunters you see run up and grab the horns because that's all. They're horn hunters, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with. We all want to kill big bucks. But you see him drop to his knee and paying respect to the deer, man. And
sure.
that was encouraging to me to see that. But so this is one thing that I want to talk about because I don't think non-hunters understand this whatsoever. They don't understand the feelings that go into somebody. And I want all of you to share your personal, like, what goes through your mind in this moment. But as you walk up on this deer, as you see, I've just killed this deer, and you get to see him, you get to touch him for the first time, what sort of feelings are rushing through you in that moment?
I mean, I won't lie. Like, I get a little bit like choked up, like,
Yeah.
like I just took a life, that's nothing to be making jokes about or not take seriously. Then at the same time, there's just the amount of respect I have for this beautiful creature, who's just a part of Earth, doing its thing, going through the circle of life. And then I do get excited. Like, I get excited in the fact that I can provide for my family and my friends with what we just harvested, and like I said before, in the most natural, humane way possible. Like, Gabe has raised this on his farm. It's eaten everything he's provided.
Yeah.
It has a ton of land to move around and be healthy and live in the ecosystem. So it's like we know everything about this deer. So I get excited for that and to share it with everybody. And this is a cool way of life. Like, you guys have your freezers stocked to provide for your family and your friends. And I respect that a ton because it's work, to do that. And it's, like I said, there's the most natural, humane way to go about survival. Like, a lot of people don't think about where their food come from and, how they're getting it, what that animal or those animals go through. So being a part of that process just makes it so much more sentimental to me.
Andrew,
Dylan?
what about you? What when you walk up on a deer, what kind of emotions are you hit with?
I think thankfulness,
Yeah.
just appreciation is usually the first thing that I think, because in that same way, anytime I'm able to harvest an animal and deer in particular, because that's predominantly what I'm able to hunt, it absolutely provides for me. It provides for my family. And I take some level of pride, an appropriate level of pride in the fact that I'm able to utilize that animal, that I'm able to break it down and make it something that is enjoyable to eat as well. So that really is one of the top thoughts on my mind. And, obviously that goes along with the opportunity to be able to harvest, a mature buck or, something that is absolutely gorgeous, that's beautiful and amazing because of, just because of what that animal is, over and above the fact that, yes, it's going to provide. So there's some excitement, I think, too, in that moment. And that could be, not only could that be a mature buck, it could also be a nice doe. They're both going to provide, a great meal, but they're both beautiful in their own right too. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd have to second what these guys say too. And it's just like, I think if you haven't got to a place in your hunting journey to where you can appreciate, and I mean truly appreciate, what you're actually doing, because there's so many people out there that have, they've started hunting because they've seen guys killing big deer, and that's great and everything, but a lot of them are just like, oh, I'm gonna go buy the most expensive gear. They buy Sitka gear, they get a bow, and they go out there and they try to shoot the biggest deer they can, and they take a picture, and that's the end of it. And they call a friend that they once knew and said, hey, do you want a deer, by the way? And I think guys like that, that's all cool. I'm glad you're hunting. But when you truly tap into like what these guys are saying, You actually appreciate the fact, like the animal, you just took his life. He actually lived, for maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and through winters, through snowstorms. And then it all comes down to one moment. He's laying there on the ground. It's just like, you have to have some mad respect. It can't just be about a trophy picture. It's got to be more than that. Or I think we're missing something in a big way if you don't reach that place in your hunting career to where you can truly appreciate that, hey, it's not just about a trophy animal. It's about like a way of life, providing for your family, and just to realize, because I don't know about you boys, but when I go to my freezer, I take a lot of pride in it myself when I reach in there and I grab a package of meat and I'm like, I put this on the table, It's just so much more, I think it's just so much more natural than going to the grocery store and picking up some burger.
Yeah.
You guys agree with that?
A well-stocked freezer also provides an opportunity to share too.
Yeah.
That's something that's really, I've been reminded of that this year. Back at home, even though I haven't harvested but one deer so far this year, there have been at least 2 others that I've been able to butcher and put in our freezer. My daughter was able to take her first deer this year. And as well as one that we basically saw get hit by a car. And unfortunately, a lot of time, those deer are the one that you just end up seeing rotting and almost going to waste. Because a lot of time, even the predators that would normally, get to utilize that, they don't make it out their way, to the road. So I've gotten to put 3 deer in my freezer this year so far. And that's given me some confidence to even be able to bless some of my friends, particularly ones that haven't had the experience to eat venison before. And it gives me the opportunity to kind of help guide them and say, hey, well, try this or try that in the way you prepare it so they have a good experience as well. So, there's just so many opportunities that it provides.
The last thing I'll just hit on is it's just like the art of being a man. Like I come from East Coast, so I'm from outside of Philadelphia. But you guys all grew up basically hunting your whole lives. And I just think from society, a point of view that I look at it is like, we have to get back to our roots in some sense, or at least that's what I think. So getting out here to hunt is just really being a man.
Well,
because this generation, dude, I can promise you, they're not studying the art of being a man. So I think somebody needs to write a book here and title it that right there.
But like, do you guys agree with that? Like, I just feel,
1000%.
I feel like it's such a lost
1000%.
thing, especially more nowadays. And I'm not trying to get political or anything like that. I'm just speaking truth.
So there's nothing. This is just truth, cold hard truth.
Right. So it's like, you want to do man stuff, like you go out there, you hunt an animal, you harvest it, you eat it, you share it, you respect it. Like that's what being a man's about.
The definition, and dude, it's so crazy to me, and I have a strong feeling we're about to go off on a major tangent, but it's just so amazing to me that people complain about hunting. That's such a young and new concept to think we shouldn't hunt, we shouldn't kill animals. This is wrong. Like, dude,
those people wouldn't even be here if it wasn't.
If you
for
thought that 100 years ago, you die.
Exactly.
Like, if
That's
you
what I mean.
100 years ago, if you thought, we can't kill animals, well, you're not gonna live. Like, there was no driving to McDonald's and grabbing a burger. There was no, driving through, oh crap, 4x4s.
In-N-Out burger.
In-N-Out. There was no driving in In-N-Out and getting a 4x4. Like, you went out and you killed your meat so you could eat it. Otherwise, your family didn't have food for the winter. Like, it may be more than 100, but anyways, it's such a young concept to think we shouldn't hunt.
Totally.
It's outstanding.
This is making me think of that video of the guy in the grocery store, and he's like shooting the ham in the freezer. You ever see that?
Yes.
Like, that don't happen, man. People are they're just, and if you're one of those people out there, and you're probably not because you're listening to this podcast, but there's people out there that would say, yeah, but we don't have to hunt anymore. Well,
somebody has to.
We both have to make a choice whether you're going to pay the guy to slaughter the beef in the meat at the meat locker, or whatever.
Who's lived a horrible life, might we add?
Right. or I have to make a decision if I'm going to go out and harvest an animal that's lived an incredible life in the wild.
Healthy, free, organic,
Exactly.
Natural.
Exactly.
natural.
We all have to make decisions. That's it, man. There's just two choices.
Dude, I like, and I don't remember who was talking about. Maybe it might have been Gabe, asking him, well, you're a vegetarian? And they said no. And it's like, well, then we can't have this conversation. Because, like, that's the idea. Like, if you just Google beef plants, like, it's disgusting, man. These cows are packed in and they don't have any room to move, any room to walk. I mean, they're pumped full of all different, hormones. And you think that's the good You think that's the good way to live? You think that's the good life? And that's the natural, humane way to do it? No, it's disgusting. But you're going to look down your nose at us for coming out here where these deer are running free and happy and healthy as can be, and in 7 seconds it's dead.
Right.
Like literally 7 seconds, its breath is gone and it's on the ground dead, unless you make a shot like mine. Then
and he,
we'll get
he
there in a
never
minute.
even knew. Yeah, but
Great transition.
When Joey shot his deer, he never even knew he was hit. I mean, he was a dead deer running. He took off. All he did was went to sleep. Easy
Yeah.
on, clean,
Yeah,
sufficient. That's how it should be.
like you can hear in the video, like you see the shot and then you hear the video. Gabe, 7 seconds later says he's down. Joey's down right there. He went 60 yards, 70 yards, and died. I mean, he never even felt pain. Like he was just dead. Before we go on, I do got to give a quick shout out to my friends over at Forerunner Blinds. We have not been hunting in Forerunner Blinds, but Forerunner Blinds are by far the most versatile way of hunting, in my opinion. I don't know why you're laughing, Gabe. It's just the truth. Well, I said that because you mentioned hard metal blinds, and so I didn't want people to think that Forerunner Blinds are hard metal blinds. No. Forerunner Blinds, in my opinion, is the most versatile blind you can hunt in. It's a giant 6x6 metal frame blind, and it's got trailer wheels on it that pop up and down. You can pull it anywhere on this property, set it down, and start hunting. It's really cool. You can pull them with e-bikes, four-wheelers, golf carts, side-by-sides. Pop them wherever you want to hunt and start hunting.
Send me some Forerunner blinds.
They're really cool. Joey, we got to eat your deer. What was that like?
Oh, it was heaven.
Could have had a better chef, but
It was just delicious. Absolutely delicious. Yeah, we well, I guess Gabe can talk about how'd you cook it, man? What'd you do? Just
yeah, what
throw it-
did you do?
Man, so I just call it fajita style. That's kind of what you call it, man.
Yeah.
I just like to take a back strap, and there's plenty of ways to cook it, but this is just the quickest way, man. There's some better ways to eat back strap, but what we did was just fresh right off the deer, just slice it up real thin and get it like fajita strips, then throw it on a flat top grill, get some good olive oil that helps you get that nice char on there, and just start flipping it. You don't gotta cook individual pieces, throw it on there and just start flipping it into a pile, man. You get some nice char, and it's almost like glorified beef jerky, at that point, except it's hot and juicy, and it's good stuff, man. I don't think there's anything better, to be honest with you.
But what was the, we're talking about being able to feed your friends and family, and we were literally all at that point starving, hungry, and then now we're all eating on the meat that Joey just harvested. Like, what kind of emotion do you feel when, dude, I just gave a cabin full of people a fresh, hot, delicious meal, as fresh as it could ever be, as organic as it could ever be. This is the healthiest meal you could ever get. Like, what goes through your mind in that moment?
I'm just extremely grateful. Like, gratitude is just the best way to put it. Like I said, I come here for the experience. I mean, the whole thing. Like, obviously, it's cool. We want to get a buck. That's great. But even if I didn't get a buck, like, I'm here because these guys, like, and just hanging out, getting to learn about everybody, creating new relationships. So grateful and just gratitude to be able to have harvested a buck and then feed everybody who's putting in the work on their hunt. Like, we're all that guy at some point, right? Whether we're providing the food or we're hungry for it. Like, you're always going to be on either end of that spectrum. So
Right.
being able to, like, take care of your friends and like your new brothers that you guys meet on that hunt is just I'm just unbelievably grateful for the experience.
Yeah. Now, moving on to the next couple stories. Stories of humility, I would say. First off, and I do want to note there are a couple of things I want to change about my bow setup, specifically the arrow setup. I'm not saying that. Well, here's what happened. I decided to just go a complete new arrow setup. I've shot, like I said, Joey was shooting a deer crossing archery silencer shaft, which is a micro diameter. He was shooting an SK2 broadhead, which, in my opinion, is the finest broadhead on planet Earth. I'm
Agreed.
Just 100% telling you that. And I had shot that for 3 years, maybe 3+ years even, and I loved that setup. It killed everything it ever touched. Like, it just blew through, created massive wound channels. Gabe's got videos of literally blowing the insides out of a javelina. Like, literally, its organs are hanging out of its body
That
when
elk
it
I
hits.
shot this year and ran 40 yards, dude, and went down. I mean, just devastation, complete and total.
And that's the arrow I'd shot for, the better part of 3 years. And I decided to just try to change everything up this year. So I went with a Rupture, which is a 204 diameter, and a single cut-on contact, single bevel broadhead, which is a good setup. I'm not saying anything about that. However, the deer that I shot today, I don't think would have had the same outcome with a different setup. It would have been a complete different story, complete different outcome. I don't think he would have moved before the arrow hit him. The deer had plenty of time to move. It took 14 seconds for the arrow to get to him. Gabe said he brewed an entire pot of coffee while he was waiting for the arrow to hit the deer. Which, and if you listened yesterday, it's a 665 grain setup. It's only shooting 220 feet per second, which, again, that's plenty of speed. I'm not saying anything about that, but it's just, and Gabe said it best. He said, dude, you're getting more kinetic energy than you can ever need, and you're sacrificing too much speed for it. And that's a great way to put it, and that's 100% what happened. But I had no way of knowing that until, today, until, I actually go out and get some real-life experience with it. So I will say that I am changing that setup. I'm going to change that. I am still going to run a Rupture, but I just change some of that insert system and cut that down some. And, I did some math, and I think I can get it to about 545 grains. So, save 120 grains out front and go back to an SK2 because, dude, nothing beats an SK2. I don't know if you've ever did you do any work on that broadhead?
No, but the guys that did, they worked really long and hard on it. I'll call out David Hahn there at
He's been on the show
Bear
before.
Archery. Yeah, awesome guy. I'm very lucky to get to work with him on a daily basis. But yeah, he put in a ton of work on the SK2, tested it, just put it through everything imaginable, and that's what came out on the other end.
Yeah,
and I've shot plenty of animals with it too, and I wouldn't use anything else unless I didn't have a choice.
right.
Yeah, phenomenal head,
I
phenomenal.
think it's the best clip system too, as far as locking the blades.
Oh
in
my
place.
gosh, yes.
That's ever
It's-
been
it's
created,
fail-proof.
hands down. It really is.
It's 100% fail-proof.
Yeah, if you're looking for a mechanical out there, I say you gotta try that.
Beginner question: where can I get it?
Bear Archery's website. It's the same website now, isn't it?
The SK2 is under our Sick brand, but you go to beararchery.com and all the brands, including Sick, are there. So you can go there and find them. And we sell them through a large number of retailers across the country as well.
So that'll happen. I mentioned yesterday, and we talked about it last week on the podcast. Andrew had brought me a single pin. I got burned on the single pin this morning. Did you even hear the first story of the single pin?
No. Well, I don't know. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, well, I completely missed one this morning. No, I shouldn't say that. Clipped the very, very top of her back. But
You gave it a nice little haircut.
gave it a nice little haircut. But, we had anticipated the deer coming in to 25 yards. And so I set the single pin at 25 yards. Then it does at
By we, he means him.
by he said, I'm taking no credit for this whatsoever. But then the doe that I was going to shoot at came in, and she was at 17, 16,
15.
15. I mean, yeah, somewhere
Yeah,
in there.
I
And so,
arranged it after, yeah.
so I was literally, 10 yards over. And this goes back to the arrow setup too. I told you this. 10 yards ain't a big difference when you're shooting, 280. But 10 yards is a huge difference when you're shooting 220.
Yeah, it does make a really big difference.
That pin gap's a lot smaller if you're at 280, 290 feet per second,
For sure.
as opposed to 220 feet per second. And so I got burned on both the heavy arrow and the single pin because, had I been shooting my old setup, I'm confident that arrow still would have hit. It still would have been high, but still would have hit a much better shot. So anyways, doe comes in 15 yards. My single pin set at 25, and I haven't even shot a single pin, much less hunted with a single pin, in the better part of 5 to 7 years. I remember trying it and using it for a season. I mentioned that, but that was probably 7 years ago. And so I didn't even think about it, man. I'm so used to just having my 20-yard pin. You draw back, that's my 20-yard pin, shoot. And so, I just thought, hey, it's 20 yards. Use your 20-yard pin, shooter, and Gabe said, "What happened?" And I said, "My sight's at 25." Like it didn't even dawn on me, man. And so, again, just a learning curve for a single pin, but also something that you have to remember if you're a single pin shooter. Which again, that's just why I choose a 3-pin because, 20, 30, 40, you don't have to think about it. My pins are there; they're set.
And that is the good thing. Obviously, Trophy Ridge does have options for guys who are used to a single pin, but we have options, and you have experience with it, but in a trio head by having the ability to have a mover sight, but still have 3 pins in your hood. So you've got 20, 30, 40 yards right there without having to move anything. It's kind of best of both worlds, isn't it?
Yeah, that's, I alluded to this, but so the setup that you brought me is a Cyclops setup. We put a dovetail on the digital housing, but if I just put a 3-pin housing, if I put the trio housing on that, then you've got a 3-pin digital on a dovetail. And so
That's right. Yeah.
Again, it's trial and error. I wanted to try something new this year, and sure, you could run it more and get more used to it, and things would get better. But why not just go back to what has proven to work for me? And so that is what'll change. So I did miss a doe, shot her right over her back, and she ran off. And Gabe still said, "Well, let's just hang tight, man. It's still early in the morning. Stuff will move." Well, then after a massive outburst of laughter from the blind, we won't get into why. But after,
Yeah, please don't.
it was at Joey's expense, I'll say that. After a massive outburst of laughter in the blind, Joey said, "I'll be honest, I truly thought our hunt was over." He just thought, well, we all three just belly laughed in this blind. The whole blind was bouncing up and down laughing. Gabe said it was the best ab workout he's ever had in his entire life. Yeah. Joey said, "I'll be honest, I just thought the hunt was over." And we sat there, and a nice buck comes, like we see a nice high 8, and we're like, "Man, dude, that's a good looking buck." And he comes right in, and Gabe so politely said, "You're not shooting him." But there was another buck coming
He was
behind
just
him.
young, man.
Yeah, no,
when you run into him next year,
dude, he'll be
you're
tall.
gonna thank me for that. Yeah.
No, he'll be tall, beautiful, nice buck next year. But anyways, so a smaller 8-point comes in, real short tines, and Gabe wanted him off the property, and so Gabe said, "Shoot that one." But again, story of humility. That deer's at 25 yards, so this time Gabe said, "Dial your pin in." So I said, "Okay," and so I moved my sight to 25, but no, like we talked about, it took 14 seconds for the arrow to get to the deer, and he had turned and ducked. Your brother said he watched the video. He turned, ducked, went to get another bite of corn, looked back up, walked over here for a minute, then came back, got hit by the arrow. No, he did. He turned and ducked a lot, and so just a bad shot, man. And we really couldn't figure out what had happened. Like, we didn't know what had happened, but the deer walked off, and Gabe kept eyes on him. And what all did the deer do after the shot? I mean, because you were the one that had the most eyes on him, but just acted really weird.
Yeah, man. Just he knew something was up, but it was just, I'll say there was a very sharp broadhead, obviously, that you were using, but it just, it did not
Didn't make a hole.
entry hole, no exit hole. I mean, we watched him from both sides, and dude, we couldn't even see blood running down. So we ended up finding some blood, but it's just, I think too, it's not as bad a shot as it turned out to us think it was. But I mean, however I'm trying to say that, but I honestly think if you'd had like SK2 instead of switching it up, it'd have been a different story. But it wasn't as bad a shot as I think we thought it was. It was just
Yeah.
it's hunting, man. It can go so many different ways.
I think it's an opportunity just to remember, or how we're talking about amazing these creatures are.
Resilient.
I was able to
dude.
see the video. It's incredible how quickly a deer can move.
Resilient.
Absolutely.
But no, I mean, we caught vitals with that shot for sure. I mean, just due to where it went in and where it came out, we caught vitals, and he definitely would have died. But he took 2 big bounds off and stopped at, how far did he stop? 40 yards maybe.
Yeah, and I thought he was going to go down right there. I'm like, well,
Yeah, I said I'll put another one in him, and Gabe said no, he's going to go down, and really we just wanted to see him go down on video and just lay down right there and die. But we kept watching him and kept watching him and kept watching him. He kept standing there, kept standing there, kept standing there. We're like, dude, what is going on? But then he walks up the hill, like almost as healthy as can be looking, just
telling you.
walks up the hill. And Gabe said, dude, I mean, he's hit. And we get out and we go look at the arrow, and the arrow's covered in blood. I mean, slap covered in it. And good blood, too. And then
Right.
we go to where he was standing. There was blood, not everywhere. Had it been an SK2, it would have looked like a bloodbath. But, there's blood where he was standing. Again, it was good blood. And we're like, man, this is strange. Like this deer's acting weird. So we saw him bed down. We saw him lay down, and there's still some other deer just moving around him, and really acting like nothing had happened, and he was acting healthy. And the whole time, we're sitting there looking at him through binos, and Gabe said, dude, he's licking his lips. Hopefully that means he's filling up with blood. And
Right.
of course he was, just not near as fast as we needed him to. And again, that goes back to just having a bigger impact on your broadhead. That single bevel just created one cut. And so that's what there's a big rave right now about single bevels and busting through shoulder blades and deeper impact. And again, that's all true. However, if you throw some bleeder veins on there, bleeder blades on there, that would help tremendously. But that literally just created a cut through him. Just one slice of a blade through him. And so he bedded down, and I don't know, maybe 200 yards he bedded down.
Yeah, he just found a good spot, lay down, and that's when patience comes into play. If you ever just it's kind of cliche anymore, but when in doubt, back out. Most of everybody's heard that. That's the game in a situation like that. If the shot's questionable, you'll just be so glad that you gave that deer some time.
We didn't
Because-
back out.
Right.
We didn't back out only because there's a specific reason we didn't. Gabe said, dude, it's been raining all night. These leaves are dead quiet. He's bedded away from us. We can sneak up there and get another one in him. And so I was like, yeah, dude, because he bedded down. He was 200 yards from us, but he was only 35 yards, ended up being 35 yards from the road, or from the four-wheeler path or whatever. So we could walk right up that four-wheeler path, and he had no idea we were ever coming because again, we had heavy rain all night last night. Ground was soaking wet. Had it been dry, those leaves would have been crunching, rocks would have been rolling. We could have never done that, and we had a good wind. And so we just snuck up the road really quiet and got another shot in him, and he expired, and so it turned out good. But in that moment, you're just like, man, really, you're kicking yourself. You're like, why did I change my setup, dude? Everything I had worked great. But we as outdoorsmen like to try new things, and so I learned my lesson, I guess. But that is, that's how it goes sometimes. And so we ate him today. We got to eat Joey's yesterday. We got to eat mine today. And that's just a good camp atmosphere, man, being able to eat the freshest meat known to man. Like,
For sure.
we shot him at 9:30. We ate him at 11:30. Like, that's how life should be, dude. And mine tasted better than Joey's.
How does it feel, Dylan, to know that you supported my growth of muscle on this amazing stature?
Honestly, you were looking a bit depleted. I'm like, man, Joey's getting small, dude. Like, Joey needs some protein.
I better put a deer down quick.
I'm like, somebody needs to kill some meat, brother.
If you didn't kill something, I was coming after one of you guys on camera.
I'm like, man, Joey needs some protein in his system, dude.
Man.
And so we got some protein in Joey.
Deer liver king.
Shout out to Joey, the deer liver king.
Oh, man.
No, so I mean, it all worked out. We got a deer on the ground, and it worked. But still, in that moment, I just want to go back. so let me recap that. And I'm saying this for a specific reason, not just to make fun of myself. I missed the doe, and then I made not a great shot on a buck. And I just want to make this, like, I want to be 100% transparent, and I don't want people to think, hey, Dylan is a great hunter, because I'm not. I don't want people to think Dylan's a great shot, because I'm not. I mean, we mess up, we make mistakes, and Gabe said, dude, it happens to everybody, and I'm like, yeah, but not twice in one day. But just stupid mistakes, and and Gabe said, man, that's sometimes, man, we come to camp and it's a chore to kill a deer in a week. Like, it just, things don't go right and things are wrong. And so, guys, hang in there. Don't get discouraged. It happens to literally everybody. And I told my brother, I'm like, dude, I remember the last time I missed a deer with my compound was the year me and my wife got married. So 2014. So that's 8 years ago was the last time I missed one with my compound. The only reason I remember that one so vividly is because she was with me and made fun of me. But anyways, it happens to everybody. Like, you're going to have bad days in the woods. You're going to mess up. You're going to miss. You're going to wound them. It's just a sad part of hunting. And so don't get discouraged. Hang in there. Don't say, well, this just isn't for me, I guess, because that's what it takes. Crazy things can happen. The wisest thing I was ever told, and I'm sure you guys can agree with this, you control you. Like, you make sure, and Joey did it perfectly. Joey walked through every step of his shot. You control what you do, and don't worry about that deer. You can't control what happens downrange. You can't control if that deer ducks. You can't control if that deer jumps. You can't control if that deer turns. You cannot control what that deer does. But you can make sure that everything you do is correct. So don't get down on yourself. Hang in there. Obviously, practice more. Know your equipment better. Mine came down to strictly not knowing my equipment. And it just happens. And so that's just the truth of it. Andrew?
Yep.
You're up, my friend.
All right. Well, this is probably it's a good opportunity to just talk about humility, again, because I find myself in that position. Got here the first evening, got to sit with Gabe in a blind, and honestly, it was an incredible sit. I mean, we got to see a lot of really healthy deer, and honestly, that's one of the most enjoyable parts of the hunt for me. I know when I got started, and I've only really been hunting for about 12 years. I shot my first deer 10 years ago. And it's not something that I grew up with, but just like Joey said, it's something that at that age in my early 20s, I decided it's something I wanted to do, and I just needed to figure it out, and a lot of people have helped along the way, but regardless, I've had lots of good experiences. I've had some not as good experiences. And one of my favorite things to do, regardless, is to sit and watch deer. I mean, just watch them operate, learn more about how they live. And so we had a great sit. We'd seen several different bucks, not the right one yet. And then before we knew it, this buck that Gabe called split tines, or split brows, I should say, he sauntered in, and man, did he ever saunter. He had the swagger, as a big buck should. And so he came in, and as soon as we had that quick discussion, we knew it was time, right? So I started to get ready, just kind of like Joey had talked about before. Gabe and I were kind of maneuvering in the blind very quietly. I got set up on the right side, and the window got opened. I gradually came to full draw, but at that moment he was moving enough that I was going to lose my shot, right? So I started feeling a little rushed. I realized, I was kind of aware that the top of my bow was a little close to the roof of the blind. So here I am. I'm thinking probably too many things, right? I'm thinking too many things all at once. Going back to kind of the stuff that Gabe was talking about earlier, is making sure you're focusing on the stuff that really matters. So before I knew it, the deer had moved a little too far out of that window. So I had to let the bow down inside the blind, and then we kind of had to do this little shimmy in the middle of the blind and switch locations. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm coming to full draw. checking my cam again, make sure it's not going to hit the top. So I'm kind of squatting down a little bit. But he turns around, gives me a great broadside shot. I can see him through my sight, through my peep. I'm anchored, and I start to pull through, and I make what feels like a good shot, but I immediately see the arrow hit very high, kind of above his shoulder. It seemed like even above his spine. And so I know I did some things right, but I also realized like I was rushing a little bit. I know that as I settle my pin, I typically come from the top and I come down and try to settle. And because I rush, I let that arrow go a little too soon.
Yeah, and
obviously.
it's nothing to do with skill. I mean, you're a great shot. I've watched you shoot. Like, the guy can stack arrows, like, and at a distance, a great shooter, but it's just a hunting situation. Somewhere along the way, like, if it's never happened to you, I always say you haven't hunted long enough, because it's gonna happen at some point. And just unfortunately, like you said, just a little high.
Well, at the end of the day, I'll finish that story, but just to make that point, each and every one of us can say that we are all built by the experiences that we've had in life, and that's positive and negative, right?
Yeah.
So from a hunting aspect, at the moment, this is kind of seeming like a negative experience, but I can guarantee you I've learned a ton from it.
Absolutely.
So basically what happens after that is the deer turns, definitely in a hurry to get out of there. I mean, he's not happy about what's going on, but as far as his body goes, his physical movement, he's still moving naturally in that moment, like a deer would, right? And I can see the arrow is almost completely through, and I can see it on the other side. And he doesn't saunter off. I mean, he's not, but he's moving, right? He's getting out. He's getting out of Dodge. He's ready to be gone.
He's busting brush.
That's right. That's right. There's nothing that's going to stop him at this point. And so, we're just basically waiting to see what happens. We fortunately, Gabe was able to get the shot on video so we could review it afterwards. And what do we wait? Maybe 15 minutes or so, and then we got out and we were going to go ahead and go see what the situation was.
Yeah, not to go after him, but just assess the arrow.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially if there's ever a suspect shot, last thing you want to do is just take off and try to recover a deer. But no, we just wanted to go to where he was at and see what kind of blood we have, and maybe hit an artery or whatever. But it didn't take us long. We got out there and found your arrow, and
we knew that he had moved quite a distance.
Right.
We kind of saw him go quite a ways. So. We just had to assess the situation. We're able to find the arrow pretty quickly, and we saw that there wasn't much blood on the arrow, mainly towards the back of the arrow. But the decision at that point was to pull out, right? Just like normal, we'll pull out. Seemed like there was a chance that it could have been a non-lethal shot, and so so now I've got an arrow in a deer. We know that happened. And so now we're hunting this deer. Right. So Gabe and his brother Garrett eventually told me, like, hey, we've seen him around a lot. If he's in good shape, then we should see him again. Right. So, and that's basically what I've been doing for the remainder of the time that we've been here, is just hunting hard.
Yeah.
Hunting hard after that deer. So at the moment, we did spend some time today, doing the responsible thing of using the resources that they have available here, which they have many, some great dogs that know how to get on blood, that know how to get on deer. I've got all these great guys that put effort in on their part to walk through these woods and comb and look for the possibility that deer had expired without us realizing it. Because he hasn't shown back up, unfortunately, yet. So we're taking those steps one piece at a time, one thing at a time. But at the end of the day, there are a great number of lessons, right, to learn from this experience.
Absolutely.
Well, that's
and
what
I'd say too, you handled extremely well. It's handled like a champ. Because it's always a bummer, but you kept your attitude good, had a good time on the through the week. And I appreciate that, man.
Well, that's what, my dad one time told me, he said, Dylan, no hunt is unsuccessful. Like, never walk away from a hunt and be like, dude, I was unsuccessful. Whether you don't kill a deer, whether you miss a deer, whether you wound a deer, whether you kill a deer, like, never walk away and say, man, this wasn't a successful hunt. Because sometimes we think, man, I didn't kill a deer, I wasn't successful. You know, we go home like, well, I didn't have a successful week. But every time we hunt, we learn something new. And that's the takeaway from each hunt. That's the success of each hunt, is learning something about deer, about how they respond to a shot, about, whatever you learn about. But Gabe, we had originally thought that was over the spine, non-lethal. He's going to come back. We're going to find him. You know, he'll show up on a camera this week, and we'll know he's alive. We'll be good. He'll walk in front of a blind again. We'll be fine. But then you and your brother watched that video over and over and over and over again, and freeze framed it and slow mode it. And what made you think that's below the spine? He's probably dead, or he's going to die. You know, one of the two.
It was just, it was so close to like borderline being spine. I mean, you look at it one time and you think that could be over. And then you look at it again, you're like, no, that's under. And I have to say, it's just like, I got that feeling the more I'd watch it, like, because it's right there. If it had been a little bit higher, it would have been a spine shot. It had to be, and he'd dropped right there, but he didn't. So it just leads me to think that it just had to be just under the spine, and it passed through both sides. We know that because the arrow kind of got hung up right at the fletchings, and then kind of eventually worked its way out the other side. So I'd say top of the ribs, just below the spine, and it is what it is, man.
So I think we've come to one conclusion: either that deer is dead, or he's going to die. Which is,
50-50 chance, yeah.
Yeah, dude, we've seen deer do crazy things, man. We've seen them
so resilient. Like, dude, that I'm not gonna be shocked, because I ain't gonna give up. I mean, if that deer don't come in and say, tonight before you guys hunt's over, yeah, I'm not gonna give up looking for that deer. But I'm not gonna be surprised one bit if he shows back up on camera at another part of the ranch at all, because they're just such resilient animals. And that's another reason you gotta give them mad respect, man, because they're so tough.
Yeah, dude. One of my brother-in-law, Adam, one of his friends shot a deer, and picture perfect shot, like blew through everything he's got, middle of the rut, and they thought, dude, he's dead for sure. Never found him. And then the next day they're out hunting again, and they see that deer with a hole in both sides chasing does. Like, just insane, man.
Yeah, it's no joke, man.
That deer did die. They did find that deer months later. But still, you're like, dude, the next day, 24 hours later, he's chasing does with holes blown through both sides.
Were you talking about that deer that John shot?
Yeah.
He was like missing half his side.
Yeah. That was
unbelievable.
That was crazy. Got hit by a car or something.
Something like that. It was dramatic.
We have no idea, what had happened, and there's been speculations, and I know they took it to a taxidermist. He does plan on getting it mounted like that, which is cool.
That would be cool.
But you just have no idea, man. That deer was perfectly healthy, running around, breeding does and chasing does and fighting bucks, and our buddy shot it, and just crazy, man. The stuff they live through, and just how resilient they are.
Just kind of wrapping up on the experience where it sits today, because the truth is that the story's not over yet.
Right.
But at where we sit today, I think I can sympathize, or maybe other hunters can sympathize with me, that sometimes the most difficult position to be in as a hunter, especially after you've made a shot, even if you knew and you really had a great feeling about it, or all the evidence places that it was good, is when you're in that position of not knowing, when you really have to sit and accept the fact that you just don't have enough information to have the answer as to what's going on. Maybe it's something that you're going to find out about soon, or maybe you're just not ever going to know. That does happen. Sometimes It's going to be something that you replay in your mind for the rest of your life. I know there's stories out there like that. I have them for myself. But at the end of the day, don't give up hope. If there is hope, and if there isn't, it goes back to those those opportunities to learn, right? At the end of the day, you could take every single experience, whether it's positive
Yeah.
or negative, and pull
100%.
something out of it.
Dude, I just this year in September, I shot a bear with my recurve, and looking at the shot, it was a touch high, but come out mid body, and everything about me says that bear's dead. But in Idaho, there's such crazy deadfall. I know you have experience with this. Like I told one guy, I'm like, you don't understand, man. Like I could have literally been walking over deadfall and that bear be under my feet and not see him. Like, so we looked and looked and looked and looked and looked, and I still believe in my heart that deer's dead. I mean, just based off the shot, I don't know how he would live. But again, like that's something I'm never gonna know. Like because it's not like some random hunter's gonna find and be like, I need to tell Dylan Ray about this bear. I mean, I'm never gonna know. And I have to replay that over and over in my mind again and just think, I believe he died that night. I mean, most of us that were there believe he died that night based off the video, based off the blood on the arrow. But again, I'm never going to know. And that it's a sucky feeling. But again, you walk away from that learning so much, like about yourself, about your equipment, about the animals, about their resilience, about, pulling out and waiting and being patient. And, I'm literally on the mountain texting my wife on my inReach saying, I just shot a color phase bear in the mountains with my recurve, dream come true. And then, the next morning I'm saying, never mind, like never found it, and that's super hard. And that it's a tough thing to go through. But again, you learn so much and you take away so much from it. And, there's never an unsuccessful hunt. That's for sure.
Yeah. And, let's be honest here. Sometimes it's good to laugh too. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. We have watched the video a few times.
We're gonna put that on
it's
repeat.
a good reminder.
We're going to put that audio clip on repeat.
How aware I was of the situation, because you can hear the bow go off. And what is it, like half a second later, I was like, dang it.
Like right as the arrow makes contact. So that's a good example right there. Like it wasn't the lack of following through, because you were watching that arrow intently, because as soon as it hits, dang it.
Oh, I can tell you right now that it's replaying in my mind right this second. I can see it happen over and over again.
Oh man.
And Gabe, you said that. You said, listen, you were telling Joey this. You said, listen, I have no doubt about Andrew being a good hunter and a good shot, because he knew the moment he shot that,
Oh, is the instant, yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And that's exactly what we're talking about, is just becoming better and honing those skills and being a better hunter. Joey, I asked you last week, what was the biggest lesson you learned last year? Second hunt, first buck. What's the biggest lesson you learned this year?
Patience. Just be patient. Don't be in such a rush.
You mean like at the moment the deer's coming in, like at the time of the shot, or
Just
throughout
in
the whole
general
hunt?
with the whole process, from the whole hunt to when you see the deer.
Yeah.
Just being patient. I think it can help with deter a lot of things from going wrong. And kind of like you had said, it's just, or someone said here, just focusing on what you can control. Don't worry about what the deer is going to do, but just focusing on yourself and all the variables that you can control.
Yeah. And that's something that, both of you guys could easily touch on. So many guys don't enjoy the process. It's all about killing a big deer. It's all about, man, I want to shoot a deer. If you don't enjoy the process, you're never going to be a successful hunter. Successful in the sense of, I had this conversation with somebody the other day. We were talking about who's the best hunter in the world that we know. And, obviously names come up like Chuck Adams or
Joey Zatmary.
Might I say 2 for 2 on kill shots, homie? That's what I'm talking about. But anyways,
Dylan Ray.
we talk about the greatest hunters the world's ever known. And yeah, names like Chuck comes up and names like Fred Bear comes up, or, you look at the world record holders and you're like, dude, they got to be a good hunter. They've killed a world record. Well, if you look into some of those world record killers, you're like, oh, they've only killed 3 other animals in their life. Like They just happen to stumble upon a world record. And so to me, like what makes a good hunter is somebody who just consistently goes out and harvests mature animals. Somebody who can go out into the woods, and it doesn't even have to be a deer hunt, I think of a good hunter, a good outdoorsman, and it's somebody who's a deer hunter from Pennsylvania, and they go on their first elk hunt and somehow they get it done. Like, just because they're good woodsmen, they're good at understanding animals. And like, to me, that's what makes a good hunter, is somebody who just knows animals. They know where they're going to be bedded, where they're going to be going. They can pattern deer. They can, watch deer and figure out how to kill that deer. It's not necessarily who's killed the biggest deer or who's killed the most deer, but somebody who can just consistently go out and kill mature animals. To me, that's what makes a good hunter. And those people just absolutely love the process. They love everything about it. They love planting food plots in the summer. They love running trail cameras. They love hanging stands. They love shed hunting. They love, just going out and being out and watching deer and, observation sets, in the summer, and just learning where they love that. And that's what makes them a successful hunter. And that all comes down to patience. You have to have patience to love the process.
That's it.
Is it? It's good too. It's real good too. No, you've got to learn the process. You've got to trust the process, and you've got to love the process. Otherwise, if it's all about the kill,
Love the grind.
yeah. I mean, if it's all about the kill, you're not going to be successful. And you can tell being around guys like Gabe, you're like, dude loves the process. Like, he's all about, like, dude, that deer right there, man, I've been watching him all summer long, dude. This is his favorite part of the farm. He always, he just loves it, and that's what makes Gabe a good hunter. Yeah, I said it.
Appreciate that, bro.
I did say it. So Andrew, what's your biggest takeaway, like, from this?
If I'm gonna say like a takeaway from this specific hunt, I would say it's more of a reminder for myself, right?
Yeah.
Take your time. Take your time. Don't rush. Take your time. And the thing is, it's a lesson that I know. It's something that I have learned the hard way before, but man, sometimes you need that reminder, honestly. So yeah, that's what it boils down to for me.
Yeah. No, my massive takeaway, and it's kind of a sucky takeaway for a guy like myself, because I love gear. Like, I'm a gear junkie, dude. You saw my garage. I've got bow shops set up to work on bows and tinker with bows. Like, my favorite thing about hunting is just immersing myself in the gear. And then I get on a hunt like this, and I'm not blaming the fact that I just had the bow for a day and a half before I shot. That's not even the point of it, because I should have spent more time down here learning my equipment. I should have spent more time down here playing with the sight. I should have spent more time down here looking at my arrows and shooting different distances to see the lobs and to see. I should have done that to learn my equipment better. So my biggest piece of advice is know and understand your equipment, because it'll make or break you. And this week, has been that huge lesson learned for me, is just know your equipment, which again, it's kind of hard because I love tinkering with bows. I love tinkering with arrows. That's like my favorite thing in the world. But that was my biggest takeaway from the week for sure. Gabe, what about you?
Man, just enjoying camp, man. Just to slow down, because I'm just like everybody else, got a busy life, and it can be so fast paced sometimes. But it's been so nice to sit around a fire and just enjoy some time with your bros, your new brothers, as you put it. And so just enjoy the way of life, man. If you're going out there in the woods and you just spend your entire time in the woods on social media, what are you really enjoying, So I just to slow down and enjoy the moment, enjoy the camp, enjoy the fellowship with good guys. But I'd say that's probably it, man, for me. Slowing down, just like you guys been saying, enjoy yourselves.
Yeah, 100%, man. Because that is what will make you a successful hunter in the end, by far. Guys, before we go, I got to give another quick shout out to my friends over at Arrow Junkie. Like I said, I am a gear junkie. Arrow Junkie is a one-stop shop for all things arrow building, all things tools to build your arrows, all arrow components, all things broadheads, all things broadhead sharpening, which, again, that's just what I love to do, is tinker with arrows. And so my arrow shop building station is all outfitted with Arrow Junkie stuff, and you can get everything you need there to build your own arrows, which, again, if you really truly want to know your equipment, building it yourself makes you know your equipment. So, guys, go check out Arrow Junkie for some really cool swag, really cool apparel, but also all things arrow building, all things arrow sharpening, arrow tuning. It's phenomenal. But, guys, thank you for listening, and make sure and keep the dusty side up.